The smell of wet earth and dew is the only alarm clock I need. It's 4:30 in the morning, and before the sun even thinks of touching the peaks of the Mantiqueira, I'm already on my feet. It's here, at Helena Medeiros, that I am simply Lena. Half an hour in the orchard and my hands, which will soon be typing frantically, are busy picking tangerines. I love the roughness of the peel, the juice that stains my skin. It's real. It's where I feel the weight of true beauty, the kind that needs no filter or filler. I take the farm with me. It's not just the mud that washes off in the shower, it's the serenity I need to survive what comes next. At 7:15 a.m., the impeccable gray suit uniform is on. My hair, which hours earlier was loose in the field wind, is now firmly pulled back into a secretary bun. My backpack holds my homemade lunch and the books I try to read on the commute. The bus is crowded, noisy, and with every kilometer that takes me away from the farm, I feel like I'm exchanging my tranquility for a ticket to the life I need to pay for. The impact at the luxurious atoll is always a sensory shock. The light is intense, artificial, designed to reveal any imperfection. The air conditioning is so cold that I miss the rustic heat of our kitchen. Here, I am Ms. Medeiros, the executive assistant who ensures the magic of beauty happens. My office doesn't have the hum of high-frequency devices, but rather the persistent click of my keyboard and the irritating ring of the VIP phones. "Good morning, Lena." Mrs. Oliveira called. She wants to move up her platinum rejuvenation package appointment and demands a slot with Dr. Sophia, the receptionist says, already on edge. I sit down in front of the computer. My mission is to manage the precious time of wealthy clients, negotiate impossible schedules, and ensure that payments for treatments costing thousands of reais are processed flawlessly. I handle the cost of everything these women do to escape aging, but I only receive a tight fixed salary that barely covers the cost of feed and the vet for the farm. It's 2 p.m. My stomach rumbles with hunger, but the pile of documents is relentless. I'm reviewing the contract for a new treatment, the Golden Touch, which promises to eliminate all wrinkles in 3 sessions. I've read the fine print, individual results may vary. There is no guarantee of total satisfaction. I swallow hard. It's a façade contract, like almost everything here. At this moment, Mrs. Oliveira passes me in the corridor, dressed in designer clothes and with her skin taut from her last procedure. She barely notices me, nor remembers asking about the farm last week. She only sees my badge. I am Helena, the invisible gear that sustains the empire of perfection. I am on the front line of luxury, but I am the one who can least afford it. I manage other people's dream schedules, while my only dream is to protect the rustic reality of my home. The smell of antiseptic had faded. The receptionist had left at 6:30 p.m. The grand hall of the luxurious atoll was strangely silent, reflecting the cold light of the security spot. I was straining my eyes over the last batch of confidentiality agreements that needed to be scanned before I could catch the 7:45 p.m. bus. If I missed it, I would have to wait over an hour and would arrive at the farm after midnight, worrying my parents. My fingers flew over the keyboard, but the exhaustion accumulated over a year and a half of double shifts was taking its toll. I blinked to ward off double vision, my forehead throbbing. I was not a martyr, but the money for the farm's new irrigation system depended on closing this month with impeccable paperwork. At 7:25 p.m., I heard the sound of the executive elevator. My heart rate shot up automatically, a Pavlovian response I could never control. Dr. Jhon Peter, the youngest and most successful, and strangely reserved, surgeon at the clinic, rarely left before 8. His arrivals and departures had the power to charge the atmosphere, making every molecule of air suddenly feel electric. I kept my eyes on the screen, wanting to be invisible as his steps approached. He would pass my desk, as he always did, perhaps not even seeing me. He would get into his luxury car, and I would continue to not exist in his world. Except that night, his steps stopped. I raised my head slowly, holding my breath despite my best efforts to maintain professional composure. Dr. Jhon Peter stood less than a meter from my desk, his immaculate charcoal gray suit, his face young but serious, expressing total reserve. At 32, he carried himself with the silent confidence of a man who knew his time was worth millions. His eyes, an icy, penetrating blue, swept over me with an intensity that made my skin feel tight. I had only been under the focus of those eyes once in a year and a half, during my interview. "You're still here." His voice was a grave, controlled murmur. I cleared my throat, trying to sound professional rather than breathless. "Yes, doctor. I'm finalizing the confidentiality agreements for the new package. They'll be ready for first thing tomorrow." Something flickered across his face, too fast to identify. His eyebrow arched, almost imperceptibly. "And what is the time of your last express bus to the rural area, Ms. Medeiros?" The question hit me like an electric shock. How did he know about the bus? And the rural area? 7:45 p.m., doctor. He remained silent for a long moment, his gaze dropping to my glass of water, then to the pile of contracts next to my computer, and then back to my face. I resisted the urge to fidget under that scrutiny. "How long have you been with us, Ms. Medeiros?" The question surprised me again, as it sounded like it was pulled directly from a file. "A year and a half, Dr. Peter." And in that period, he leaned in slightly, his gaze fixed on mine. "Have I ever demanded that you sacrifice your health for a contract that can wait until 9 in the morning?" I hesitated, unsure where he was going. His seriousness was overwhelming. "You asked that the work be done with excellence, doctor. I'm just ensuring it." His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Ensuring excellence does not imply seeking exhaustion. You have a life commitment outside of here, don't you? One that requires you to be functional. I managed to juggle it, the words came out more defensively than I intended. "I'm sure you believe that," he replied, his tone unwavering. "However, I prefer my employees to be alert and rested rather than on the verge of exhaustion. Complete what is essential. The rest can wait until tomorrow. Go home and catch your bus." It was the longest conversation we'd ever had. And also the kindest thing he had ever said to me, masked as an order. "Thank you, doctor." He nodded once and turned toward the elevator. I let out the breath I was holding, my hands trembling slightly as I turned off the monitor. I felt the weight of that gaze, even as he was turned away, as if he had memorized my tired expression. The knowledge about my life, even if it was just the time of my bus, left me with a cold, uncomfortable feeling. I was not invisible to him. I finished scanning the 3 most urgent contracts and closed the laptop at 7:35 p.m. As I straightened my desk, I saw the executive elevator door close with a soft click. He had waited for me to prepare to leave before descending. I stood staring at the elevator, my heart doing something complicated in my chest. Jhon Peter had never expressed concern for my well-being. He had never acknowledged that I had limits. He had never looked at me that way, as if I were something more than a name on a badge. I was a competent secretary who kept the backstage of his art functioning perfectly, and that was all. The next morning, I arrived at 7:30 a.m. The bun was impeccable, the gray suit unwrinkled, but inside, I was still processing the strange intervention from the night before. And then I saw it. On my desk, next to the keyboard, was a sophisticated white porcelain cup, with a rich and familiar-smelling coffee. It wasn't the strained coffee of the Medeiros family, nor the watery espresso from the clinic's pantry. It was a latte from Cafeteria Mantiqueira, the only place in the city that used fresh farm milk. The only place I visited on those rare free mornings. It was warm, perfect. No note, no explanation, but I knew. The coffee hadn't appeared there by magic. I took a slow sip, letting the warmth and familiar flavor spread through me, trying not to attach too much meaning to a simple gesture, trying not to remember the way he had looked at me the night before, as if he had suddenly recalled that I was human and not an organizational robot. The morning passed in a blur of phone calls and emails. Dr. Sophia had a packed schedule, and I coordinated everything with the efficiency I had perfected over a year and a half. An invisible conductor of the perfection orchestra. My job was to ensure that appointments, payments, and discretion were absolute. At 2 p.m., the receptionist, Lucia, appeared at my desk. "Lena, Dr. Jhon Peter wants you in the executive meeting room." My stomach plummeted. The executive meeting room, not his office. "Now," she emphasized, her eyes wide. I grabbed my tablet and notebook, my mind racing. In a year and a half, I had never been summoned to that room. That space was located on the top floor, reserved for board meetings, high-risk negotiations, and decisions that shaped the future of the Luxuosa Etoile. Secretaries did not attend those meetings. The meeting room was located at the opposite end of the executive floor, a vast space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city's skyline. When I entered, I found Dr. Jhon Peter sitting at the head of the table, with 3 other men. 2 I recognized as directors of luxury cosmetic laboratories, regular partners of the clinic. The third, I had never seen before. The stranger was younger than the others, perhaps in his 30s, with the kind of polished good looks that came from expensive care and exaggerated confidence. He turned when I entered, his eyes scanning me with an interest that made my skin prickle. "Ah, the assistant," his voice carried a hint of amusement, an all-too-easy smile. "You didn't mention she was so captivating, Peter." I kept my expression neutral, professional, as I had learned to do when men looked at me as if I were something to be consumed. I moved to the corner of the room, where I usually positioned myself during the rare meetings I was asked to attend. Close enough to hear, but far enough to be forgotten. "Ms. Medeiros handles my schedule and confidential correspondence," Jhon Peter said, his voice cold and monotonous. He didn't even look in my direction. "She is here to take notes." The stranger's smile widened. "Seems like a waste of resources just to schedule." He paused, his gaze fixed on my bun. "I just wonder, does your beautiful assistant have a boyfriend? Because if not, I'd love to." The sound of Jhon Peter's hand hitting the mahogany table cut through the air like a gunshot. Papers slid. The lab directors flinched. I froze, my pen hovering over my notebook. "This meeting is over," Jhon Peter's voice was glacial. Every word enunciated with deadly precision. "Gentlemen, escort Mr. Almeida out, now." "But doctor, we haven't finished the distribution agreement," Almeida began, the amusement gone from his face. "Out." The 2 directors moved with practical efficiency, flanking Almeida and guiding him toward the door. He left without further protest, though confusion and anger were stamped on his face. The door closed behind them, leaving me alone with Jhon Peter in the sudden, suffocating silence. He didn't look at me immediately. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, massaging his temple with 2 fingers, his face now a mask of containment. The only things moving were his eyes, which stared at the closed door with dangerous intensity. I waited, my heart beating in anxious rhythm. I didn't understand what had just happened. A crucial negotiation had been shut down because of a rude comment. That was unprofessional. Finally, he sighed and turned his head to face me. His blue eyes, usually cold, seemed to burn slightly. "Ms. Medeiros," he said, his voice a little softer, but still strained. "Are you all right?" It was the second time he had asked about my well-being in less than 12 hours, and the shock of his thinly veiled concern made my throat dry. "I'm perfectly fine, doctor," I managed to say. "What happened with the meeting?" "The agreement with Almeida and Sons." He dismissed the subject with a swift wave of his hand. "It's none of your concern." I won't tolerate that kind of disrespect toward my team. My team. He used the word. And he had just sabotaged $1 million deal because of me. Dr. Peter, I appreciate your defense, but... You don't need to thank me, he interrupted, his tone reverting to rigid and professional. I don't need distractions or embarrassment in my executive office. Your focus is on the work. Ensure nothing interferes with that. Especially idiots. His harsh tone calmed me down a little. It was just about productivity, not about me. Understood, Doctor. He stood up, walking toward me. I approached the table, waiting for instructions. He picked up my notebook and gently closed it, pushing it back to me. Go back to your desk, Ms. Medeiros, he ordered, but without hostility. And close the door behind you. I need a moment. I left the room and closed the heavy wooden door, hearing the soft click of the lock. I leaned against it for a second, closing my eyes. Dr. Jhon Peter had waited for me the night before. He had given me coffee. And he had cut short a crucial negotiation to defend me from a vulgar comment. I was confused. I was just the invisible gear. But the icy surgeon suddenly seemed to be looking at me. I should leave. I should apologize and go back to my desk and pretend this outburst never happened. I needed my job. But my legs wouldn't cooperate, rooted to the spot by something in the air, something electric and dangerous that made my pulse race. Jhon Peter slowly stood up, his movements controlled, but there was a predatory tension in them. He walked around the massive mahogany table, each step measured and deliberate, until he was directly in front of me. Close enough that I could smell his cologne, something expensive, fresh, and clean, like mint and snow. Close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact with his icy blue eyes. Dr. Peter. 1.5 years, his voice was low, almost a contained growl. 1.5 years I watched you arrive here at 7:30 a.m., impeccable, with the faint smell of dew and tangerine. 1.5 years I listened to your voice on the phone, managing the impossible. 1.5 years I smelled the faint scent of earth on your clothes and pretended not to notice. My breath hitched in my throat. This couldn't be happening. The icy surgeon, Dr. Jhon Peter, barely acknowledged my existence beyond work hours. I don't understand, I whispered. He approached, gently cornering me against the side of the table. His hands came up on either side of my head, lightly touching the mahogany surface, caging me, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from his body. You think I haven't seen you? His eyes searched mine, intense and ardent. You think I haven't noticed your dedication? I notice everything about you, Lena. Every single thing. He had never used my first name before, except for a rushed good morning. The sound of it on his lips sent a shiver down my spine that had nothing to do with fear, and everything to do with the attraction I denied existed. Then why? Because you work for me, his jaw tightened. Because you are the engine that keeps my clinic running flawlessly. Because I thought I could control my interest. I thought I could keep you at a distance. He tilted his head, his gaze dropping to the tight bun. But then that bastard dared to look at you. He looked at you like you were a piece of meat at the butcher shop, in my room, in my presence. And I saw red. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was insane. This was my boss. My dangerously reserved boss who was currently pinning me against a table and looking at me as if he wanted to unravel my secrets. You are my assistant, the words came out rough, possessive, with a caveat. You are my responsibility. Your productivity is my priority. And the thought of another man even, addressing you inappropriately brought me to a breaking point. His thumb subtly traced the tip of my shoulder, the touch sending electricity throughout my body. Tell me you understand this, he continued, his voice hoarse, commanding. Tell me you know I am your employer. The man who pays your bills. I should push him away. I should remember that I need this job, that he's my boss, that this could ruin everything. But, God help me, I had been lying to myself for a year and a half. I understand, doctor, I whispered, the confession hanging between us like an energized wire. I am your employee. A sound escaped him. Something between a growl and frustration. It works well for me. You have no idea what you've done to me. Sitting at that desk every day. So professional. So untouchable. He stopped, his jaw clenched as he fought for control. His hand dropped from the table, and he took a step back, putting the necessary distance between us. The loss of his warmth felt like a physical blow. This complicates things. He ran his hand through his dark hair, musing the perfectly combed strands. You work for me. There are rules, expectations. I am not known for mixing business with pleasure. And my life. He gestured vaguely, encompassing everything his executive and surgical life entailed. My life is entirely consumed by the clinic. Reality returned, cold and relentless. He was right. This was impossible. I needed this job. I needed the salary that paid the farm's expenses, kept a roof over my parents' heads, gave me a future. I know, I straightened my spine, drawing on every ounce of professionalism I possessed. You are right. This was an anomaly. We should forget it happened. I will go back to my desk. And I didn't say I was letting you go. His eyes locked onto mine. Stormy and intense. I said it complicates things. There is a difference. My pulse raced. What are you saying, doctor? I'm saying I spent a year and a half maintaining my distance. A year and a half of discipline and control. And in 30 seconds, Mr. Almeida destroyed all of that by forcing me to act as if you were something I need to defend. He approached again. Without touching, but close enough that I had to tilt my head back. I don't fight against the things I want. And I certainly don't let other men think they have a chance to disrespect what I consider mine. I don't belong to anyone, I said, trying to sound firm even as my body betrayed me, leaning into his proximity. His smile was dark, almost a sneer. You don't belong? Then why is your pulse racing? Why are your pupils dilated? Why are you breathing as if you just harvested an entire orchard? His hand moved up to rest on the table next to my shoulder. Your body knows the truth, even if your mind is still fighting it. He was right, and I hated him for it. I hated the way my body responded to his proximity, the way my skin was overly sensitive, the way I wanted him to close that final distance and kiss me until I forgot all the reasons why this was a terrible idea. What do you want from me? I whispered. Everything. The word was simple, absolute. But I want to invite you to dinner tomorrow night, at 8 p.m. I will pick you up. It was not a request. Dr. Peter, I can't. I need to catch the bus. Your bus is no longer an issue. I will drive you home, and I will pick you up here at the clinic. Wear something other than that gray uniform. I want to see the Helena, the delicate country girl. Dr. Peter. Jhon. His thumb grazed my cheekbone. When we are alone, you call me Jhon. Jhon? I tested the name. Strange on my tongue after so much time of careful formality. I don't think that's a good idea. It probably isn't. He stepped away, finally giving me room to breathe. But I ran out of good ideas where you're concerned. All I have left are the bad ones, and I've stopped fighting them. He walked back to the conference table, gathering the papers that had scattered when he hit his hand. When he looked at me again, his expression had changed, returning to the controlled mask I was familiar with. But I could see the cracks now, the heat simmering beneath the surface. Go back to your desk, Ms. Medeiros. And tomorrow night, wear something beautiful. He paused at the door, but not too beautiful. I have very little self-control where you are concerned. And I would prefer that our first date actually include dinner. He left me standing there, trembling and confused, and more alive than I had felt in years. The rest of the day passed in a haze. I went back to my desk and tried to focus on work, but my mind kept replaying the scene in the meeting room. The way Jhon Peter had looked at me, the orders disguised as concern, the implicit promise in his voice when he called me his responsibility. At 5:30 p.m., as I finished scanning the last contract, Lucia, the receptionist, appeared. Her expression was one of contained gossip as she placed a small package on my desk from Dr. Jhon Peter. I opened it with trembling hands and found a new cell phone, a state-of-the-art model, already activated. A discreet note was inside: "Your number is already programmed." Mine too. Don't miss your bus tonight. I'll pick you up here tomorrow at 7:30 p.m. JP. I looked at Lucia, questions forming, but she was already turning away, feigning interest in a flower arrangement. That night, in the rustic safety of Sitio dos Medeiros, with the scent of dew replacing the antiseptic, I stared at the new phone as if it might explode. It rang exactly at 9 p.m. Hello. Are you home? Jhon Peter's voice, deeper on the phone, sent shivers down my spine. Yes. I just had dinner. What did you eat? The question was so mundane, so normal, that I almost stumbled. Rice, beans, and sautéed kale. Farm dinner. Why? I'm learning about you. What you eat, what you like, what makes you smile. A pause. I wasted a lot of time, Ms. Medeiros. I won't waste any more. We talked for an hour about nothing and everything. He asked about the farm, and I found myself telling him about the need for a better irrigation system, the cost of animal feed, the beauty of the sunrise in the mountains. He listened without judgment, without offering empty clichés about country life. Your parents are proud of you, he finally said. For keeping the clinic running and for protecting your home. For working so hard. I'm just doing what's necessary. I need the salary. You could have gotten an easier job, his voice softened. You chose the hardest, most demanding one. That takes purpose. I respect that. He wasn't wrong. The next day at work felt electrically different. Every time Jhon Peter passed my desk, his eyes lingered on mine for a second longer than necessary. Once, he stopped to ask me about a report he definitely had already read. His gaze traced my face with a hunger that made concentration impossible. At 7 p.m., he appeared at my desk. He was wearing a different suit than he had that morning. Charcoal gray, which emphasized his broad shoulders, with a perfectly starched white shirt that made his blue eyes look even more intense. Ready? I need to go home and change first, I protested, looking down at my work clothes. I don't have anything dinner here, doctor. You are perfectly fine. The car is waiting. We will stop at the farm first. Of course he knew where I lived. Jhon Peter knew everything about everyone in his orbit. His car was exactly what I expected, a black luxury sedan with tinted windows and a professional driver. He held the door for me, his hand on my lower back, burning through the fabric of my suit. During the drive, in the back seat, he maintained a respectful distance. But his hand found mine, intertwining our fingers with a discreet possessiveness that should have alarmed me, but which, instead, made me feel anchored. Nervous? He asked. Scared. This isn't professional. He smiled, a small, genuine smile that transformed his usually austere face. Good. Don't worry, I'm excellent at faking professionalism when necessary. It's a survival skill. His thumb traced circles on the inside of my wrist. But make no mistake, Lena. You terrify me. Because for the first time in my life, I found something I want more than control. The confession stole my breath. Before I could answer, the car stopped in front of the wooden gate of Helena Medeiros. Jhon Peter's expression darkened as he looked at the exterior. The old gate, the dry mud, the dim lights. How long have you lived here? Since I was born, Doctor. It's our house. My home. His jaw tightened. Pack a bag. What? Pack enough for tomorrow. You won't be taking the bus back to the clinic anymore. And you won't be taking the bus home again. The panic exploded. Jhon, I can't afford a driver. I can't afford an apartment in Sao Paulo. I need this salary for the farm. I'm not asking you to pay for anything. His eyes met mine, intense and unyielding. I'm saying you won't spend another night exhausted from the double commute. I have a guest house in my gated community, safe, secure. There's a vacant suite. It's yours. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper that was just for me. And one more thing, I don't sleep at night knowing you sacrifice so much. I'm already contacting a construction company. My team will oversee it. We're going to build a new, safe, and comfortable house for your parents here on the farm. They don't need any more worries about old structures. I can't accept that. The possessiveness in Jhon Peter's order was undeniable. It wasn't a request, it was a declaration of intent. The idea of a new house for my parents, of my financial burden being magically dissolved, was breathtaking and, at the same time, unbearable. Although I won't be comfortable with this, Jhon, the Luxuosa Etoile pays a good salary, but the reality of the farm is that we are on the verge of collapse. The roof needs replacing, the cost of feed and vets is a growing debt. The farm is the only home I know, my soul is there. But it's swallowing me. It's this precariousness that prevents me from having the time and energy to pursue any dream, even dedicating myself to my studies. The confession was painful, and Jhon's expression softened with an understanding I hadn't expected. I know, he murmured. That's why I'm acting. I'm not a man who waits. I see the problem and I solve it. The farm isn't swallowing you, Lena, the sacrifice is. I will remove the sacrifice. And you will get your time back. He looked directly at me, his eyes penetrating. Your efficiency at the clinic is legendary. Imagine that efficiency focused on your dreams. That's what I'm investing in. Yes, you can. You will. He held my face, forcing me to look at him. I told you, you are my responsibility. That means I protect what is mine. And I certainly won't let my best assistant live this way. This is too much, too fast, Doctor. Probably, he replied, unwavering. But I don't do anything halfway, Lena. You should know that about me. In the end, I packed a bag. And I really was living in a very precarious and exhausting way. And, honestly, something in Jhon Peter's eyes told me that refusing the offer of the farm construction had more to do with a heartfelt desire to protect me and wish for a better life. The driver, a silent and efficient man, drove along the highway, moving away from the smell of earth toward the smell of modernity of the metropolis. Inside the car, the silence was filled only by the soft hum of the engine. My parents, hastily informed that I would be in training in the capital for a few days, had given me a look that said, "Use common sense, daughter." Common sense was the only thing I wasn't using. I was sitting next to my boss, a surgeon worth millions, who had just offered me a new life. We arrived at Jhon Peter's gated community, a fortress from the outside with maximum security. Everything was more luxurious than any place I had ever entered. Glass walls, marble. Take a shower, change your clothes, Jhon Peter ordered, his voice professional again, but with a hint of softness. I'll be waiting. The restaurant is reserved, and the chef is waiting for us. I panicked. My bun was intact, but I only had work clothes and old clothes for the farm. My best dress, a simple floral print, was wrinkled in the suitcase. 20 minutes later, I was back in the living room. The floral dress was hastily ironed, my hair, loose, was only lightly brushed, falling in messy waves over my shoulders. My makeup was the bare minimum. I looked the opposite of everything the luxuosa étoile represented. Jhon Peter was waiting for me, impeccable. He stopped what he was doing, checking something on a tablet, and stared at me. His blue eyes scanned my simple dress, my rebellious hair. My expectation was that he would be disappointed, perhaps even annoyed by my lack of glamour. But he smiled. Not an ironic or mocking smile. A genuine smile. Perfect, he murmured, the word loaded with more meaning than the occasion called for. He approached and, with his fingertips, lightly touched my shoulder. You smell like lemon and rain. That's much better than designer perfume. The restaurant was ultra-exclusive. The hostess led us directly to a reserved table, and I noticed that the other patrons looked at us with curiosity, or perhaps envy. Jhon Peter was a celebrity in his circle. During dinner, Dr. Jhon Peter transformed into Jhon. He didn't talk about surgery or finance. He talked about the books he read, about his irritation with hospital bureaucracy, and he asked relentlessly about life on the farm. He wanted to know about the best time to harvest the fruits and if the full moon really influenced the harvest, as I had mentioned on the phone. You are a contradiction, he said at one point, leaning back in his chair and watching me over his wine glass. You manage an empire of superficial beauty, but you love the rawest, most real beauty. You are so organized here, he tapped his temple, but so chaotic in your passion. You are a contradiction too, doctor, I retorted, gaining courage. You are the height of control. But you risked millions of reis because of an idiot. The smile disappeared. The control mask returned. I don't risk, Lena. I invest. And I decided to invest in you. Entirely. He put down his glass. His eyes became serious, returning to the intensity of the meeting room. Your future, your safety, the well-being of your parents. That is now my investment. I will not let it fail. Why are you doing this, Jhon? I needed to know, clearly. I am your assistant. Why all this? He leaned across the table, the intimate distance of the restaurant disappearing. And I want to know who the woman who smells like wet earth is and who terrifies me with the thought of losing her. And the only way to find that out is by removing the exhaustion and the pressure. He hesitated for a second. It's a start. And starting tomorrow, you will begin to live as you deserve. My team will be at the farm in the morning. They are the best. You don't have to worry about anything. The possessiveness in the order was not that of a boss, it was something else. Something that caused me fear and attraction in equal measure. The dinner ended, and we drove back to Jhon Peter's gated community. When we entered his property again, the scale of his world became overwhelming. The community was not just a cluster of expensive houses, it was a true luxury country resort. The houses had modern architecture, glass and wood, nestled amidst carefully cultivated nature. There were extensive preserved wooded areas, stone paths lined with fruit trees that looked like an elite orchard, and a leisure area that included gourmet ranch spaces with professional grills and even an artificial lake. The guest house, where I would spend the night, looked like a retreat, silent, modern, and surrounded by a private garden. Jhon Peter stopped in the hall and looked at me. You won't feel out of place here, Lena. I chose this community because it's the opposite of the city center. It doesn't have the pretense of the atoll. It has orchards, trails, and the smell of clean earth. It's not your farm, but it's close. It's an environment where you can breathe. The idea of having a forest to walk through in the morning, perhaps with the scent of dew, instead of squeezing onto a bus, was almost too tempting. Thank you, Jhon, I said, gratitude choking my voice. I will unpack my things. And please, keep me informed about the farm's budget. I want to know the costs and work to pay them back. You will know everything. Transparency is vital. But don't worry about payment right now. Worry about resting. He didn't kiss me, didn't touch me beyond the brief touch on the shoulder. The order of protection was the only thing that mattered. Good night, Lena, he said, turning toward his side of the property. Good night, Doctor. Jhon. I went inside, exhausted, but with a new energy coursing through my body. I was surrounded by marble, glass, and luxury, but the smell of cedar in the air reminded me a little of the Mantiqueira. I had been catapulted into Jhon Peter's world, a world where problems were solved with a check and an order. And, for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimpse of hope. The farm would be safe, and perhaps I could finally have time to be more than just the exhausted Lena. I woke up at 6 a.m. Not to an alarm, but by force of habit. I opened my eyes and, for a moment, wondered where I was. The high ceiling, the soft light coming from the glass wall, and the silk duvet were a stark contrast to my rustic room on the farm. I got up and opened the automated curtain. The view was spectacular. I wasn't surrounded by gray buildings, but by a pine forest and impeccable lawns. The air was fresh, and the smell was a mixture of clean earth and cedar. For a second, serenity enveloped me, and I understood why Jhon Peter had chosen this place. A cup of coffee was already prepared in the sweets coffee maker, next to a plate of fresh fruit and a printed note. The car for the clinic leaves at 7:30 a.m. Don't be late. Dr. Sophia's financial reports need your immediate attention. JP. The order was the only thing that reminded me of our professional relationship. Except for one detail. Next to the note was a small Italian leather notebook and a luxury pen. I took a deep breath. I had to maintain my composure. I couldn't accept charity without giving back. I was an employee, and I would give my best. The farm would be safe, but my dignity would remain with me. I arrived at the clinic right on time. My hair was in a perfect bun, the gray suit, though simple, looked like a battle uniform. On my new phone, there were 3 messages from Jhon Peter, the schedule, a reminder about lunch, and a message that made my stomach churn. I hired Marcos and the construction team to inspect Helena Medeiros at 8 a.m. They will begin isolating the construction area and send the complete structural report at noon. We will analyze it together. He had done it. So fast. I didn't even have time to warn my parents about how serious the renovation was. The workday began with a flurry of phone calls. Mrs. Oliveira, annoyed at not getting an immediate appointment. Dr. Sophia, demanding confirmation of an order for expensive materials. I managed everything with my usual efficiency, but with an extra layer of tension. I was working to pay for my parents' new house. At 11:45 a.m., the executive elevator opened, and Jhon Peter stepped out. He walked past my desk and, this time, didn't stop. He just gave me a quick, cold look, and nodded. Conference room, noon, Ms. Medeiros, he said, already heading to his office. The structural report has arrived. I entered the conference room. Jhon Peter was there, wearing a blue scrub over his shirt, indicating he had just come out of surgery. He looked tired, but his blue eyes were focused. On the projection screen, there were photos of my farm. My heart ached. They weren't romantic photos of ripe tangerines. They were close-ups of broken tiles, cracks in the kitchen foundation, and, worse, a diagram showing the total failure of the irrigation system, which was the family's source of income. Jhon Peter pointed to the screen. The roof has to be replaced immediately. If it rains heavily, there is a risk of collapse in one of the wings. And the irrigation is useless. That means your parents are losing money every day. Your sacrifices are not enough to offset the deterioration. He turned off the screen and looked at me. The truth is there. You told me the farm was precarious, but it's worse than you imagined. The cost to stabilize the site and build a new house with adequate infrastructure is considerable. It's a problem that exceeds your ability to solve alone. I was on the verge of tears. He was right. I couldn't breathe in the city, and my only refuge was crumbling without my realizing the severity. What do you suggest, Jhon? The formality broke down. I was vulnerable. I suggest you keep your focus here. I won't dismiss you from work. You have a brilliant mind for organization and finance. But, starting today, you are no longer just working as my executive assistant. He leaned across the table. You will spend the morning in your executive function. And every afternoon, you will report directly to me to act as project manager, overseeing the renovation and the financial side of your new life, under my guidance. It's a promotion, Lena. With a significant salary increase that reflects the extra responsibility. Project manager? I asked, incredulous. Yes. I need someone I trust to ensure the money spent on the farm is invested correctly. And who understands the reality of it. You will be the bridge between luxury and the land. It's the first step for you to build your independence, and for me to have you close. He smiled, a calculating smile, but one that contained the promise of a partnership that went beyond the badge. The conference room was silent. The cold image of the cracks in my house still lingered in my mind. Jhon Peter's proposal was more than a job, it was a golden trap, a chance to save what was left of my home, mixed with a controlling possessiveness. I took a deep breath, straightening my spine. I could no longer afford to be the passive assistant. He was offering the tools to fight for what I loved, and if the price was entering his world, I would do it on my terms. I accept the challenge, Dr. Peter, I declared, my voice sounding firmer than I felt. But with one condition. The corner of his mouth curved slightly. He loved negotiations. State it. The salary increase and the new function of project manager will be documented. I don't want charity. I want the renovation and the house to be a loan from the salary I will earn with the new responsibilities. I will oversee every cent, and I will pay it back. It's the only way I will accept. Jhon Peter stared at me for a long moment, evaluating my determination. He was not used to having his offers of help restructured into debt. But, to my surprise, he nodded, satisfaction shining in his eyes. Done. I respect your honor, Lena. The contract will be drafted by my legal department today. Starting tomorrow, you will have access to the project account. And in the afternoon, our focus will only be on that. He stood up and extended his hand across the table, the formal gesture sealing the new alliance. His hand was warm, firm, the touch of a confident surgeon. Welcome to the executive team, Manager Medeiros, he said. I shook his hand. Thank you, Dr. Peter. The rest of the workday was intense. I digested the clinic's schedule and, at exactly 2 p.m., turned off my assistant phone and picked up the new leather notebook. The project manager needed focus. Jhon Peter called me into his executive office. The environment was minimalist, overlooking the city, reflecting his absolute control. He had changed the scrub for an impeccable suit. The first step is the plan of attack, he said, holding an aerial map of Helena Medeiros. The approach will be fast. I hate the slow pace. We will use the best materials and the best team to ensure your parents are safe before the next heavy rain. The roof, the electricity, and the new irrigation will be priorities. I agree, I replied, already scribbling notes. The irrigation is crucial. I need a system that optimizes water consumption, so we don't depend so much on the dew. He smiled. I like seeing you take charge. Excellent. Now, the house. We won't just renovate, we will rebuild with modernity and sustainability. But it has to have the soul of the farm. You are the only one who understands that. We spent the next 2 hours analyzing blueprints and budgets. Jhon Peter was a relentless boss, questioning every cost, demanding maximum efficiency, but beside me, he was a curious partner. He seemed genuinely intrigued by the logistics of the countryside, something so opposite to the sterility of his clinic. As the work progressed, the rhythm became a ballet. I presented the needs of the farm, he presented the engineering solutions and the numbers. The new solar heating system will be essential, Manager Medeiros. It's a high investment, but energy savings are vital for your long-term cash flow, he noted. Understood. And I will contact a supplier of new tangerine saplings to replant the affected area. We need to secure the future harvest, I added. Our minds worked in perfect sync, the abyss between the surgeon and the farm girl narrowing with every pragmatic decision. At 6 p.m., we ended the meeting. My notebook was full of notes, and I was exhausted, but the exhaustion was now from productive work, not stress. You were exceptional, Lena, Jhon Peter said, closing the laptop. The formality of Manager Medeiros was temporarily suspended. Your focus is impressive. Thank you, Jhon. The farm is a powerful motivation. I know. He stood up and walked toward the door. I'll ask the driver to take you to the guest house. You need to rest. Don't worry about dinner, my cook will leave something ready for you. I could take a train. I mean, my farm car. He looked at me with an arched eyebrow. You won't take any public transportation, and your farm car is safe. Remember, Lena. Your time is valuable. Don't waste it on logistics. Go rest. And tomorrow, at 7:30 a.m., be at the clinic. Your new routine has begun. He had established a new pace of life for me, luxury, efficiency, and total control. And for the first time, I wasn't fighting it, but working within it to build a future that finally seemed safe. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks into a month and a half. Lena's new routine had solidified, creating a constant dichotomy that was both exhausting and exciting. At the clinic, she was Ms. Medeiros, dealing with the frantic schedule of the luxuosa étoile, dressed in a perfect bun and suit, a cold, efficient gear. At the gated community, she was Lena, waking up to the smell of cedar and dew emanating from Jhon Peter's woods. The luxury community, with its carefully pruned orchards and ranch areas with fireplaces, alleviated the longing for Helena Medeiros, offering a controlled serenity. Jhon Peter's presence in her life was constant. He was a thermostat, always keeping the temperature of the relationship controlled, but always present and watchful. Fridays became the focal point of the week. That was when Jhon Peter drove me to the farm in his car, a 2-hour inspection trip that turned into a mutual study. The progress of the construction was astonishing. Jhon Peter's team worked with surgical precision. My parents' new roof was already finished, the state-of-the-art irrigation system installed, and the foundation of the new house, with modern and resistant materials, was erected. On one of these trips, as Jhon Peter inspected the map of the land, he questioned. Marcos suggested cutting down the older trees to facilitate construction logistics. No, I said immediately, feeling the need to defend every piece of that ground. The mango and cashew trees are part of the place's identity. They must be preserved. Find another route for the trucks. He looked at me, and I saw respect in his eyes. Your passion is undeniable. Understood. The route will be changed. The farm is your project. My only requirement is excellence. Over time, conversations transcended budget and cement. What is your dream, Lena? He asked once, as we watched the sunset over the Mantiqueira peaks. Not the farm, but yours. To have the farm safe and stable. And maybe, to find time to write. I've always wanted to write about life in the countryside, about the people who live outside the artificial glow of the city. He didn't mock my ambition. Excellent. The farm is my investment. Writing is yours. I will ensure you have the space and time to pursue it. One evening, after a particularly stressful week of work at the clinic and negotiating supplier contracts, we returned to the community exhausted. It was late. Jhon Peter took me to the gourmet ranch area, a cozy outdoor space with a lit fireplace and a view of the pine woods. He prepared a simple dinner himself, a quick pasta, showing a human side he usually hid skillfully. We sat near the fire, the low light accentuating the seriousness on his face. I was relaxed, for the first time in days. You didn't have to cook for me, I said, smiling. I need you to eat and rest, Lena, he replied, with the sincerity that always disarmed me. And I like being here. With you. The silence that followed was not professional, it was charged with intent. The smell of smoke and pine hung in the air. The formal distance he had maintained for over a month dissolved in that moment. He leaned in, and I didn't pull back. His blue eyes, previously icy, were warm, filled with a controlled hunger. I tried to keep this professional, he whispered, his voice deep. I set rules. But you are in my house, you are in my project, you are in every thought I have, Lena. It's unsustainable. He closed the small distance between us. The kiss was firm, but demanding. It wasn't a kiss from a coworker or a boss. It was a kiss of possession, relief, and discovery. I felt the electricity I had repressed for over a year and a half, the silent confession that the attraction had always been there. When he pulled away, his eyes were wide, reflecting the flames of the fireplace. That was a mistake, he murmured, his voice hoarse, without sounding the least bit regretful. It was, I agreed, my breath shallow. But it happened. He stood up, walking away from the fire and returning to his façade of control. Go back to your suite, Lena. We have to work tomorrow. The kiss lasted only a second, but it rewrote our entire story. The line between the controlling boss, the farm investor, and the man who had saved me was permanently blurred. The game of control was over, the attraction was real. The next day's sun, filtered through the guest house windows, seemed more intense. I moved as if under the effect of shock. The kiss hadn't been a dream. The taste of the coffee in my cup felt chemical, and the smell of cedar in the air was a constant reminder of his proximity. I arrived at the clinic precisely at 7:30 a.m. Jhon Peter was not yet in his office. I sat down at my desk, trying to look like the iron professional he demanded, but my hands trembled slightly as I touched the keyboard. He arrived at 8:15 a.m., coming from the executive elevator. His charcoal gray suit was impeccable, and his expression was a mask of total control. He walked past my desk and, this time, there wasn't even a quick nod or a glance. He was Dr. Jhon Peter, the icy surgeon, and I was Ms. Medeiros, the efficient assistant. The night before seemed to have been erased from his memory. However, his schedule on my monitor was strangely light for the morning. And at 9 a.m., he called me in. Ms. Medeiros, into my office. Bring your project manager notebook. We have no time to lose. I entered his office. He was standing by the window, looking out at the city. The climate in the room was absolute zero. Sit down, he ordered, without turning around. I sat down, the notebook in front of me. Last night, he began, his voice low, lethally calm. I crossed a professional line that I rigorously established for myself. It was unacceptable, and it will not happen again. My failure to maintain control is not related to your professionalism. He finally turned around. His blue eyes were pure ice. However, he continued, the event demands an immediate reevaluation of our situation. Starting today, the project manager will no longer work at my clinic. You will work on the farm. My stomach dropped. What? But my role at the clinic? Your role at the clinic will be absorbed by a new assistant, who is already being hired. Your full focus will be on the project and managing the finances remotely. You no longer need to be here physically to receive the new salary, nor to pay off the loan. Are you firing me? My voice trembled, the gratitude and attraction of the night before transformed into panic and anger. I am giving you what you truly need, time at your home and time to write. You will spend the mornings overseeing the construction in loco, ensuring the materials are correct, and the afternoons managing the payments and expense reports for the guesthouse project, which can be done from anywhere. It's a lifestyle promotion, Lena. This is punishment, Jhon. I stood up. You kissed me, and now you're exiling me to the countryside because you can't handle the attraction. You're trying to control me, to push me out of your life. He took a step toward me, his intensity almost making me stagger. It's exactly the opposite. I'm giving you control over your time and your space, something you've never had. And I'm removing you from my crisis. He tapped his own temple. I cannot focus on saving lives or managing this empire when you are sitting 3 meters away from me smelling like wet earth. I would fail at my job and put everything at risk. Including you. He held out his hand, and in his palm was the key to a simple, but new, car. The project car is outside. It's a 4x4, safe for the Mantiqueira roads. Your salary has already been transferred to your farm account. You can leave now. And don't come back here until the project is completed. And what does that mean for us, Jhon? I asked, tears welling up. You pay for my house and send me away? His eyes were filled with pain, but his voice was unwavering. It means the only way I can ensure you are not a distraction is to keep you where you truly belong. Out of my reach. And you will give me daily reports by phone, at 8 p.m. sharp. Only about the project. Don't be late. He had given me my dream, time on the farm, but in a way that made me feel abandoned and controlled. The ordeal was this: he had freed me only to dominate me from a distance, proving that his need for control was stronger than the attraction. I took the key from his hand. My nails dug into my palm. Understood, Dr. Peter. No distractions. The farm will be ready on time. And don't worry, I won't be late. I walked out of his office, knowing I had won the battle for my honor, but lost the war for an honest relationship. I was going home, rich and free, but with a heavy heart from the coldness of the man who had just kissed me and exiled me. I didn't waste time. I packed my few belongings from the guest house, grabbed the new 4x4 Jhon Peter had left for me, and drove out of the luxury community without looking back. The speed with which he had dispatched me, in a matter of hours, was the final proof of his fear and absolute control. He didn't want a relationship, he wanted stability in his world, and I was the most dangerous variable. The return to Helena Medeiros was bittersweet. My parents were shocked to see me arrive in the middle of the day, driving a new car and declaring that I had been promoted to project manager and would work from home. They were even more shocked by the sight of the new foundation and the piles of high-quality construction material. The truth was that I was exhausted and hurt, but not broken. Jhon Peter's work was impeccable. He had given me the geographical freedom to breathe the air of the Mantiqueira, the smell of the earth I loved, and the financial security to protect my family. I was in my element, using the discipline learned at Etoile to oversee the construction, negotiate with local suppliers, and ensure the new house was a home and not just an expensive structure. The only thing linking me to Jhon Peter's world was the nightly ritual. Every night, at 8 p.m. sharp, the phone rang. I was always ready, sitting on the old porch, with the project notebook open. I refused to use the voice of assistant or wounded lover. I was the project manager. Report. Jhon Peter's voice was always grave and concise. He spoke from the cold luxury of his office, I from the warmth of my home. The foundation for the new wing is complete. The insulation specifications have been verified. I'm negotiating with the supplier of colonial tiles, Jhon, to ensure the farm's appearance is maintained, despite the modernity. Just use the supplier I sent. The cost-benefit is better and the durability is guaranteed, he retorted, always seeking maximum efficiency. The cost-benefit of a home is more than the price, Dr. Peter. We need authenticity, I dared to reply. He would be silent for a moment. It was the only way to fight back, confronting his cold logic with my passion for real life. Noted. The decision is yours, Manager Medeiros. But any deviation from the budget will be meticulously scrutinized. The ritual lasted exactly 10 to 15 minutes. He only talked about cement, wiring, payments, and deadlines. But the silence at the end was always the most charged part. One evening, after a month of professional exile, the report was complete. Everything in order, Dr. Peter. The new irrigation pump has been installed and tested. The orchard is saved. There was an unusual silence on the other end of the line. I could only hear his controlled breathing. Excellent work, Lena, he finally said. You exceeded my expectations, as always. I merely ensure excellence, Doctor. As you demand. I'm not talking about the work. My heart pounded. I waited. I missed the smell of tangerine, he whispered, the formality crumbling for the first time. I miss knowing you're 3 meters away from me. I miss your passion, your smell of dew, invading the sterility of my life. The confession, so raw, hit me like a blow. You kissed me and exiled me to protect your control, I said, my voice choked with accumulated hurt. You gave me my dream, but you took away the chance to have an honest life with you. You didn't want me around because you didn't want me to be a distraction. I was the crisis in your perfect life. You were the collapse of my control, he corrected, his voice strained. And I didn't know how to handle it. But the distance didn't work. There's nothing here that doesn't remind me of you. I can't concentrate. The silence was overwhelming. I was on the porch, looking at the starry farm sky, and he was in the city, looking at a void. You have the house you wanted, Lena. You are free. You are safe. And I'm here, in my marble hell, realizing that I gave you the world, but I took away the only thing that mattered to me. What do you want, Jhon? I don't know what I want. I know what I need. And I need you to tell me this isn't over. That the fact that I messed everything up, that I acted like a controlling coward, doesn't mean you hate me. That I can still see you. The confession was the emotional climax, the fall of the man of ice. He had sacrificed his need for control to admit loss. I don't hate you, Jhon, I whispered. I just hate the price. The farm will be ready in a month. When the project is completed, when I've fulfilled my debt, and my parents' new house is safe, then we can talk about what this distance means. A month is an eternity, he replied. It's the deadline. Project Manager Medeiros, signing off. I hung up, my hands trembling. I had reversed the game. He was in the city, exiled, and I was at my home, finally in control of my own destiny and the pace of our relationship. 3 weeks passed since that emotional climax and the nightly call. The rhythm was tense. Jhon Peter continued his nightly reports, strictly professional, but always ending with a charged silence that required immense strength for me not to break. The fawn was almost finished. My parents' new house was in the finishing stages, and the orchard, saved by the efficient irrigation, promised an excellent harvest. I was free, safe, and had a future. But I felt a deep loneliness. On a Tuesday, the routine was broken. The 8 p.m. report didn't come. Nor at 8:15 p.m. Nor at 9 p.m. I called his new cell phone. It rang until it went to voicemail. I tried the clinic's landline. No one answered. Panic rose in my throat. Jhon Peter was a man of surgical precision. He was never late, much less disappeared. I tried calling Lucia, the former receptionist, but her number had changed. Anguish consumed me. I was no longer his assistant. I had no access to his schedule or any information about him. At 11 p.m., I was in my room, unable to sleep, when I received a message on the project's cell phone. It wasn't from Jhon Peter. It was from an unknown number. This is Marco, the driver. Dr. Peter is at São Rafael Private Hospital. Emergency. He doesn't want anyone to know. I need you to come. There were no further details. The fear he so dreaded me feeling, the fear of losing him, hit me squarely. I put on my robe over my pajamas, grabbed the keys to the 4x4, and sped off. The 2-hour distance to the city never seemed so long. I arrived at São Rafael Hospital in the early morning. Panic guided me to the information desk, where I used the only weapon I had left, my assistant façade. I need to see Dr. Jhon Peter. I am his executive manager, Ms. Medeiros. Is he in a restricted area? The receptionist, intimidated by my urgency and Jhon Peter's name, hesitated. He's in the ICU, Mississippi. There was an accident in his lab at the clinic. ICU. The air was sucked out of my lungs. I found Marco, the driver, sitting in an empty waiting room. He stood up when he saw me. What happened, Marco? My voice was just a whisper. A high-frequency experiment went wrong. A localized explosion. It wasn't severe, but it caused an electric shock and some second-degree burns on his arms and chest. He's stable, but under sedation. And he was alone. Dr. Peter is stubborn and didn't want the board to know about the failure. Why did he have me called? Marco handed me an access key. He was semi-conscious. When I asked him who I should call, he only said one name, repeatedly, before being sedated. Lena. Lena needs to know. I used the key to enter the ICU. Jhon Peter was pale and sedated, with tubes and monitors beeping softly. His arms and part of his chest were bandaged. He looked vulnerable, broken, the opposite of the man of absolute control. I stood by his bedside, watching the fragility of his body. He had sent me away to protect his control, but when the crisis hit him, the only name he called was mine. He had lied to himself. I wasn't a distraction, I was his only safe harbor. His eyelids fluttered, and he opened his eyes slightly. The sedation prevented him from speaking, but his blue eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of relief and shame. I took his hand, being careful not to touch the bandages. I'm here, Jhon, I whispered. I'm here. He tried to squeeze my hand, but only managed to move one finger. You didn't want me around because I was chaos, I said, without letting go of his hand. But I'm the chaos that will heal you. I'm coming back to the clinic. And to your community. You can exile me from your heart, but not from your work, not now. I leaned over him, the decision weighing like an anchor. The farm is almost finished. I fulfilled my part. Now, I will fulfill yours. I will manage your life. I will be your assistant, your project manager, your nurse, and whatever else you need. But the distance is over. I am no longer an employee you can dismiss. I am the woman you called in your moment of greatest weakness. He looked at me. I saw the recognition of defeat in his eyes. The defeat of control, and the triumph of connection. I'm taking you home, Jhon. And from now on, we're going to figure out what we are. Together. You lost the right to decide the distance. I kissed his forehead. It was my contract, not his. I had returned to the city, no longer out of despair, but by choice. The controlled distance had ended. The next day, I used all my project manager capabilities to secure Jhon Peter's discharge. I ignored the doctor's objections and, with Marco's discreet help, arranged his transfer. He couldn't stay at the hospital, under the scrutiny of the clinic board. The only safe and quiet place was his own world. I took him back to the community, installing him in the master suite, the side of the house I barely knew. My guest suite was just a few feet away, but now I spent most of my time by his side. Jhon Peter's life, the supreme surgeon, had been turned upside down. With his arms immobilized and his body aching, he was completely dependent. He couldn't sign documents, couldn't operate, and couldn't even get dressed. I took over total control. At the clinic, I called the new assistant and established a communication flow, ensuring the Luxuosa Etoile clinic didn't collapse. I managed the finances and schedules remotely. At home, I was his nurse, controlling his medication and ensuring his comfort. I was also his link to the world, reading reports and organizing video calls. The dependency eroded him. Jhon Peter wasn't used to losing control, and the situation made him irritable and frustrated. One afternoon, I was reading the final budget for the new house on the farm aloud. Construction was 90% complete. The landscaping, I read, includes a drainage system for the land and new tangerine saplings. The cost is slightly above the original budget. He lightly hit the immobilized hand on the bed. Unacceptable, Lena. Go back to the supplier. Demand the contracted price. You are the manager. My investment demands precision. I closed the notebook with a loud clack. I won't do it, Jhon. His eyes widened. What? You are being paid to optimize. I don't tolerate incompetence or financial sentimentality. This isn't incompetence. It's my limit, I said, lowering my voice. I'm here, 24 hours a day, ignoring my own work and my life to care for the man who exiled me to protect his own ego. I'm doing the work of 3 people and ensuring your empire doesn't fall while you heal. I leaned over him, the emotion of months of repressed control exploding. The farm is the last piece of authenticity I possess. I won't sacrifice the quality of my parents' home or the future of my trees for a marginal difference in your millionaire budget. The final price is this. Accept it. Are you challenging me, Ms. Medeiros? His voice was a controlled growl, the old Jhon Peter resurfacing. I'm teaching you to trust and to let go of control, Dr. Peter, I retorted, without hesitation. You fired me to protect me from being your distraction, but you called me back when your life fell apart. I'm healing you, but I'll cure you of your need to dominate everything. I am not your employee, nor your prisoner. I am your partner. And partners make decisions together. I took the spreadsheet and the pen and placed them in his unimmobilized hand. Sign the landscaping payment. Or I call the new assistant now, explain the situation, and go back to the Mantiqueira. The farm is almost finished, Jhon. I no longer need your money. I'm here because you called me. He looked at the spreadsheet, at the pen, and then at my face. His eyes scrutinized, searching for any sign of weakness, but they found only determination. He was faced with a choice: regain control over the budget or finally admit that he loved me more than he loved dominance. With a sigh of defeat and acceptance, he grabbed the pen. "The landscaping is approved, Manager Medeiros," he murmured, his voice hoarse. "You won. Now, kiss me before I become your boss again." I smiled, the tension finally dissipating. I had broken his icy façade and rescued his soul from loneliness. The kiss that followed was no longer about possessiveness or fear, but about mutual acceptance. Jhon Peter had relinquished control, and in doing so, made room for a love that was as strong as his ambition. The weeks of recovery solidified the new dynamic. I continued to be the project manager, but Dr. Peter dissolved into Jhon, and formality gave way to deep intimacy. When Jhon finally could return to the clinic, his life had changed irrevocably. He was no longer the lonely, obsessed surgeon. The Etoile Clinic, Jhon officially invited me to return, not as an assistant, but as Director of Operations and Finance, a position that recognized my worth and took the administrative burden off Dr. Sophia. I reformed the patient contract policy. Excellence was still vital, but the mental health of the staff and honesty with clients became priorities. Jhon gave me full autonomy, trusting my moral compass. Cedio dos Medeiros, the project was completed. The new house was beautiful, modern, sustainable, but with the rustic soul I had protected. My parents moved into the new structure, safe and comfortable. The new irrigation and optimized financial management guaranteed the farm's stability. Jhon Peter's loan was established with a realistic repayment plan. With the farm's stability and my new role at the clinic, I finally had time. Jhon Peter actively encouraged me. He freed up my schedule so I could spend mornings in the Mantiqueira and oversee clinic operations in the afternoon via video conference. I started writing. My first book was about the dichotomy of beauty, the artificial perfection of the clinic versus the raw beauty of country life. Jhon read my drafts, offering pragmatic feedback and sincere praise. He had given me the time and space to pursue my dream. The guest house in Jhon's luxury community became our home base during the week, but the real home became Cedio dos Medeiros. On a sunny Saturday, Jhon Peter drove me back to the farm, not for an inspection, but for a picnic in the orchard. He was dressed simply, in a linen shirt, and looked more relaxed than ever. He knelt, not with a giant diamond ring, but with the key to the new house on the farm, which now had an office wing and a writing studio. "I sent you to the farm because I loved you, but I was afraid of breaking my control. I brought you back because you showed me that the most complete life is the one where the rules are made by two," he said, his blue eyes filled with warmth. "This is the key, Lena. Not to your parents' house, but to our house. A place where we can have dirt on our hands and dream together." I accepted the key. The new world was neither the abandoned farm nor the cold clinic. It was the balance we had built. The smell of wet earth and dew remained my alarm clock. But now, it was no longer a reminder of sacrifice, but an invitation to a new day. I had the best of both worlds, love and ambition in the city, and soul and serenity in the Mantiqueira. The marriage took place on an autumn afternoon, at Cedio dos Medeiros. It was not a luxurious event, it was a simple, moving celebration under the orchard trees, with wildflowers decorating the makeshift altar. Jhon Peter traded his designer suit for a linen one, and Lena, the gray suit, for a simple lace dress, with a crown of tangerine blossoms in her loose hair. The smell of wet earth and dew competed with the sweet aroma of the flowers, creating an atmosphere of peace. Lena and Jhon's life settled into a perfect balance that honored both their passions. The week, Jhon and Lena split their time between the city and the countryside. From Tuesday to Thursday, they stayed in the community, where Lena could oversee the clinic as director of operations and finance and Jhon could perform his surgeries. The efficiency and ethics of Etoile under Lena's management made it a benchmark in the sector, proving that humanization was true excellence. The farm, from Friday to Monday, home was in the Mantiqueira. The new house, solid and welcoming, became the center of their life. Jhon installed a small research lab in the annex, where he dedicated his mornings to botanical biotechnology, studying the properties of citrus fruits and local herbs, the only kind of surgery he needed outside the hospital. The writing, Lena's dream, was flourishing. She spent her mornings in the writing studio, overlooking the mountains, working on her book. Jhon was her most loyal reader, offering pragmatic feedback and unwavering encouragement. One evening, Lena and Jhon were sitting on the farm's porch, watching the starry sky. "You gave me the only thing that mattered, Jhon," Lena said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "You gave me the farm, my parents' security, and, most importantly, the time to be who I truly am." Jhon took her hand and kissed her fingers, now free from office ink stains, but still with the rough touch of someone who works the earth. "And you gave me my life back, Lena," he replied. "You pulled me out of the sterility of my ambition and brought me to the truth. You made me realize that control is not about dominating the world, but about protecting your own heart." He smiled, that rare, sincere smile. "I don't need my marble vault anymore. I have my orchard, my lab, and my partner. And the smell of tangerine. That's enough." The smell of wet earth and dew remained Lena's alarm clock, now not out of obligation, but by choice. She was with the man who had saved her from herself and with the heart that had freed her. She was the director of operations of an empire, the aspiring writer, and, above all, the woman who had found the perfect balance between city luxury and country serenity. The dream was no longer a rescue, it was a solid reality, built with his hands and her soul.